To continue our discussion of Mother's exposition of thought as a phenomenon. These particular talks were addressed to women. There was an association of feminine thought, and addressing as she did an assembly of women, she draws attention to the fact that the role of women in the domain of thought is distinct from that of men. Women are not used to speculate on metaphysical causes, but to draw practical conclusions. Their emphasis is on practical matters, not on speculative or philosophical approaches. And it is pointed out that in trying to think in the same way as men do, women may lose their own qualities. And what are those qualities? Special to women: profound intuition and practical deduction. Profound intuition is they have an intuitive feel of things. We have always observed, even in ordinary households, where people are not intellectuals, philosophers, how they sense things behind the appearances. They go straight to the root of the matter. They don't analyze. They don't reason out. There is no logic in what they speak or they do. But there is a profound intuition. As you know, intuition can be at the level of mind, intuition can be at the level of the heart. Intuitions of the heart, which are more reliable than intuitions of the mind, and what is called practical intuition of the vital. Some would call it instinct, but it is really intuition in the vital. In one stroke, it includes so many things: what is good for me, what I want, what is good for my desires, and what is the way out. All these, without reasoning them out, they have that instinctive seizing of a situation and practical deduction. So many things happen, so many talks, so many events, but they deduce what is the lesson. They may not be able to express in so many terms, but they are very quick to draw the lesson, to draw the deduction. So she says these are special to women, and they shall not risk losing them in trying to be logical, philosophical, metaphysical, and so on. For men, it is more natural. It is in their line. Logical reasoning, capacity of analysis and synthesis. Naturally, what he says applies to men above a certain level. For most men, I know from experience, we never go through all these things. Logical reasoning, analysis, synthesis. It requires a certain discipline of the mind, a culture of the intellect. But anyway, nature has allotted these capacities to men. And then Mother says that women are capable of taking the spiritual or moral standpoint. It must be her experience. That is, they are not mental, but something essentially going to the truth of things. Essentially realistic and formative in the spiritual domain. Such are the women who have a spiritual life. They are very realistic. They do not easily deceive themselves, imagining things. And formative, they have an energy, mental energy, emotional energy, vital energy, formative. Those energies are put to good use for those who are serious in their spiritual pursuit. And they like to live well. Unlike men who really do not know how to live well. Many like to live adventurously, challengingly, or mechanically. But to draw the sap of life, to enjoy life, to live a wholesome life, it comes more naturally to women. And that can be done only if they think well. It will not do to go from moment to moment, but to think. The thinking faculties must be exercised. With these preliminary remarks, she goes on with the talk and reminds what we have known already, that thoughts exist as true, autonomous, living and active entities. They are not fluffy things which are born this moment and die the next. They are not thoughts at all. They are thinkings, floats in our mind from elsewhere. But real thoughts, they are autonomous. Each thought has an origin, has a base, has a form, has an inherent power of its own. That is what is meant by saying it is a living thought. You are not just reproducing somebody else's thought. You can reproduce somebody else's thought by living it. When you live that thought, it becomes alive. If you mechanically repeat it, it does not. Further, she says, we should not indulge in transcendental speculation. What could have caused this? What could have brought about this condition? What could be the cause above metaphysical, transcendental? If we start doing that, she says, that we expand our range too much. And she quotes a master who says, a whole universe is necessary to explain a grain of sand. Even a grain of sand, if you start speculating from where has it come, how could it have come into being, and all that, the whole universe will be necessary. Because from a certain standpoint, angle, whether it is a grain of sand or the whole universe, both are products of something else. Now what is that something else? So you will have to analyze the phenomenon of the universe if you want truly to understand the reason why a grain of sand is there. Because of its little quantity, it does not mean that it has no role to play. You would remember how Sri Aurobindo remarks that a piece of stone lying on the sand goes on exerting its influence in the cosmic balance. That stone being there in that particular position goes on emitting certain vibrations which you and I may not be able to register, but it has an effect in the cosmic balance. So everything is related to everything else. To explain the smallest phenomenon, we need to go back to universal general laws. But we are not called upon to spread our net that wide. We have to limit our area of understanding and practice. We say thoughts are living beings because even when we don't think, we receive thoughts from outside. Nobody has spoken to us, nor have we read it anywhere, but still thoughts come. They have a momentum of their own, they have a course, and then we have known in history how there are some thoughts in the air and they are picked up by several persons at the same time. There is no communication between these people, but each one receives these vibrations, and same truth is voiced by different minds, in different languages perhaps, different countries, but the same truth. That is because the thought power, the thought emanated by someone carries its power, and whoever is receptive, whoever is open, it catches him. And that is how independent of each other, same thought is expressed by a number of people. Sri Aurobindo, as all of you know, presented certain new ideas in his Secret of the Veda. He studied the Veda and found certain new truths, new to the modern mind, and developed and presented them in a series of essays titled The Secret of the Veda. It so happened that someone else who didn't know a word of English, who had never known of Sri Aurobindo at that time, a great saint, poet, he developed the same theme, almost the same ideas and approach regarding the Veda in Sanskrit. Anybody would think one person has copied from another. But they didn't know each other, they had no communication in language. When Sri Aurobindo was asked about this, he said it is quite possible, because when certain truths sail in the atmosphere, terrestrial atmosphere, those who are open receive it. And it is quite credible that the same thoughts have been expressed by different individuals. Now, any phenomenon implies a corresponding substance. A vibration, for instance, needs a medium in which it vibrates. That is how light has ether for its medium. Thought has a still subtler medium. Thought is more subtle than light. The medium in which and through which it operates is more subtle than the ether substance of light. She puts it beautifully. She says, the relationship between light and thought is one of ascendance. You have to mount a step beyond the level of light. That's why she says, conceiving is a higher way of seeing. First you conceive and then you see. It refers to the higher domains. And if we do not see thought, we don't see thoughts. We have only heard of great persons like Sri Aurobindo seeing thoughts, but normally we don't see thought. If we do not see thought, it means physical sight. It is because its substance is more ethereal than that of light. And then she adds, if we do not hear light, we see the light but we don't hear the light. It is because its essence is more subtle than that of sound. The essence of light is more subtle than that of sound. That is why we don't hear light in the form of sound. Now, we have seen that thought, very subtle medium, but it has its own elements. And it moves in its own elements, picking up things, molding them, organizing them into a certain form. Thought operates on its level as we operate on the physical level in our actions. Thought is a dynamism of the highest order, acts in its own realm as a formative power, to build a body for itself. She illustrates how a magnet attracts iron filings, animates them, molds them, forms them. Similarly, thought attracts elements which have affinity to the idea that is enclosed in the thought. Speaking of the formative power of thought, it is possible for anyone with strength, a certain power, and persistence of thought. This is a very important qualification. Most of us don't have the patience to follow up. Once you fail, twice you fail, you give up. But there is a quality of persistence, again and again. And those who persist and use the strength of formation can make powerful formations. Whether they are good thoughts or evil thoughts, it is a different matter. In a city like Paris, she illustrates how there is a scene of colliding formations. So many people are there, countless people, and all kinds of thoughts are in the air. Thoughts of political people, thoughts of common people, thoughts of intellectuals, thoughts of artists, all motivated by certain craving of desire. So if you can subtly feel, it is all a big sea of desire-ridden thoughts, and it is very difficult to maintain one's individuality in that complex scene. Difficult to escape contamination by the thoughts running about, gathering, crowding in the environment. How do you meet such a situation? She says there are two victories to be won: collective, which is positive and active; individual, which is negative and passive. The collective one is, which very few can do, you accept the outer thoughts in yourself, bad thoughts, evil thoughts, complex thoughts, fight them, neutralize them, and acquire control over them. Then you can move out in the outer environment. It's a very difficult process which she does not recommend to most. What she recommends is asepticize yourself. Put yourself in a condition which automatically rejects the contagion, the vitiation, and that you can do only by first establishing a high thought as a center of your life and synthesize all your movements around that one high thought. In other words, you light this fire within, and automatically the sparks go out and the collectivity benefits. And from your position of strength, once you have synthesized and arrived at a certain harmony, mastery. You can emanate thoughts, thought forces which can act on sickness, patients, people who are suffering. Your simple thoughts, your thoughts focused on those people can go and help them. Your thoughts can guard your friends wherever they are when they are in danger. At best, your thoughts can help the evolution of others, provided you first establish yourself in a base. First it is negative by refusing contagion, and then erecting an individual synthesis. There are a few conditions which help this process, and that is, don't judge others. We do not know the motives, we do not know the causes. So before you judge others, you put yourself in the place of the other person. An uncharitable state of mind erects barriers. What is the criterion to judge? Your values of good and bad are, after all, relative. Somebody else may have different values. So who are you to judge? True science does not judge. Science investigates, but it does not judge. So be careful to avoid tendency to judge, tendency to emanate evil thoughts, because these evil thoughts are the main cause of division. Whatever may be our outer physical movements and activity and postures, if the mind is vitiated, if the mind has reservations, there is bound to be some disharmony, distance. So create an atmosphere of noble thoughts which alone can hasten the advent of harmony. Then she sums up mastery of one's thought. Know that our actions are reproductions of our thoughts, which themselves are reflexes of sensations and suggestions. So first sensations, suggestions from outside, they have reflexes in the thoughts, and thoughts have consequences in the acts. Second, will persistently an effective direction of mental activity. Don't let the thoughts always run about hither and thither. Bring them together. Put a will that they must go in a particular direction. For us, the direction of the divine. Also, she says, know which thoughts have affinity with our sensorial and emotional nature. They are not true thoughts. They have their origin in sensorial experience and vitiated by emotions. They are not thoughts as thoughts. And what she has said, make the highest thought the pivot of synthesis. And you must have a regular mental discipline. It is not a question of knowing, but you have to practice. Know how to take enough mental rest. It will not do to strain always, to put too much pressure on the mind. She says, know how to take enough mental rest. Do not demand more than you can do. Third, know how to wait patiently. time has a role to play. You have to wait upon time. Don't be hurried. Don't be impatient. And lastly, crowning all, have childlike trust in divine grace and force. So all these conditions are to be observed for acquiring mastery of one's thought. That brings us to the end of the subject of thought. And I think next time we will take up a more interesting subject of dreams. What is the nature of dreams? From where do they arise? Have they any value in life? How do you control dreams? Is it possible to control all those things? She has spoken a good deal, but at the moment we will take up the discussion on dreams as it took place in Paris in the course of these meetings.